Hello, and welcome to this webinar on the enabling themes of the University Mental Health Charter as part of Student Mind's Library of Learning. My name's Dr. Michael Priestley. I'm a lecturer at Durham University School of Education and one of the assessors of the University Mental Health Charter. The enabling themes are themes or principles that underpin an effective whole university approach. These include leadership, strategy, policy across the whole institution, including governors, heads of department, and local leadership team. Student voice and participation across the design and delivery of effective approaches that are attuned to the needs of students at your institution. Cohesiveness of support across the provider to ensure a joined-up approach both within and across student service teams and with academic staff. Inclusivity and intersectionality of mental health to ensure the approach is inclusive and effective for a range of students and staff that may experience additional challenges and barriers to good mental health and well-being whilst at university. And finally, research, innovation and dissemination of good practice, both institutionally and across the sector. These themes are the foundations for an effective whole university approach, underpinning the effective implementation of themes across other domains and the realisation of the principles of good practice within the Charter. With colleagues Dr. Amy Zile and Dr. Gareth Hughes, we analysed evidence from universities that had been through the Charter assessment process between 2022 and 2024. We found that universities that had a more developed approach, the enabling theme, tended to have a more effective and embedded whole university approach that was evident across processes, practices, behaviours, and culture. In the remainder of this webinar, we're going to consider each of these principles in turn, starting with leadership, strategy, and policy. University leaders play a significant role in establishing a shared cultural environment that supports positive, cohesive, and sustainable change. Leaders across the institution can influence resource allocation and prioritisation of mental health and wellbeing initiatives, internal communications about the importance of mental health and wellbeing, model healthy behaviours and cultures, and direct a cohesive vision of mental health at the institution that is shared and understood by other students and staff. Conversely, other leadership actions can undermine well-being and institutional performance. Evidence shows that leaders with poor mental health are more likely to make poor decisions and model unhealthy behaviours. During our analysis of evidence from universities that had been through the Charter Award process, we found that universities with the most good practice tended to demonstrate evidence-led strategic approaches supported by visible leadership, backed by strong governance, and with a focus on creating and maintaining a healthy culture. These approaches tend to engage students and staff across the university, embed the approach, ensure consistency across different areas of the university, and align governance in relation to mental health with the wider governance of the university. A whole institution strategy can be an important way of implementing a strategic whole university approach in practice. However, evidence shows that where a whole institution strategy is perceived as disconnected from the lived experience and culture of students and staff on the ground, its impact is minimised. Therefore, an effective strategy should be holistic, promoting the well-being of the whole population across all areas of the university, co-created with a diverse range of students and staff, embedded in day-to-day life and culture, and coordinated with other policies, such as ensuring consistency with teaching, learning, and assessment policies. Taken together, there are three takeaway messages for ensuring an effective approach to leadership, strategy, and policy. First is the importance of co-creation with a diverse range of students and staff to ensure that strategic and leadership decisions are attuned to the different experiences of students and staff across different roles and different areas of the university, and ensuring alignment with your institutional context. Second is the importance of leadership for ensuring cohesion, coordination, and consistency in the approach across different areas of the university During our analysis, we found that many universities that evince good practice in this area had created cross-institutional working groups that were either chaired by or reported to a senior leadership figure that demonstrated a visible prioritization of this whole institution agenda and had oversight of decisions being made across different areas of the institution. And finally, during our analysis, we found that universities that evince good practice in this area tended to consider the importance of culture within leadership decisions. Alternatively, we found through some of our evidence that negative cultures around workload and competition could undermine good practice in other areas. Student voice and participation. Informed by the principle that students have valuable insight and knowledge from their lived experience and context, co-creation adopts a strength-based, collaborative approach between the institution and students, ensuring shared decision-making in both process and outcome. Alongside other forms of evidence and internal evidence, co-creation is important for services and interventions to be effective, avoid harm, and remain responsive to the diverse needs of students. During our analysis, the Insights report showed that universities that had a good approach to student voice and participation across different areas of the university demonstrated an enhanced approach in strategy, culture, services, belonging, and learning and teaching. Evidence shows that co-creation can benefit both the individual and the institution. For the individual, co-creation can develop important skills and knowledge, as well as social integration. For the institution, it can ensure approaches and interventions are efficient and effective in the long term and aligned to student needs. However, if inadequately supported, students in formal peer support roles can experience harm through vicarious trauma, particularly if the role boundaries are poorly defined or if the activity is poorly resourced with poor oversight and evaluation. Evidence shows that for peer support to be safe and effective, it requires appropriate governance, training, and supervision. This is essential. Co-creation is most effective when embedded in a structure of shared decision-making, appropriately supported and resourced, with training for students and staff in different roles, inclusive and accessible for students with different needs. Throughout the Insights report, we found that universities that adopted good practice in this area tended to have formalised roles and structures for student participation, visible leadership and prioritisation, and offer remuneration for student time where possible. There are three key takeaway messages with regard to student voice and participation. First, successful and sustainable co-production with students requires authentic leadership with a visible commitment to shared decision-making with students. This can be enacted through clear reciprocal relationships and communication, including on the limits of what change might be possible, and clear communication about the consequences or impact of student input. Second, given the diversity of the student population, ensuring that opportunities for student voice and participation are accessible and inclusive is essential. This can be achieved through ensuring a range of different methods and modes for student participation, ensuring remuneration where possible, and ensuring that students receive appropriate training and guidance in order to participate. And finally, governance is essential with regards to student voice and participation. Suitable safeguarding processes and protocols must be in place to ensure that students do not experience harm as a result of their participation. Cohesiveness of support across the provider. Cohesiveness of support is important because inconsistency and fragmentation put students and staff at risk by creating gaps and delays in support access, pressurising untrained staff to provide inappropriate support, and deterring future help seeking. Evidence shows that inconsistent advice and guidance, ineffective signposting, and inappropriate or delayed information sharing can all increase risk by meaning that students are bounced around between different teams, delaying access to important support, and reducing the likelihood that students will seek support from services in the future. Furthermore, evidence shows that gaps between support services and academic teams can mean that academic staff that are not appropriately trained find themselves in situations where they are responding to students with a severe level of need without knowing what support is available and how to access it. And this increases the level of risk for both the student and the academic staff member. Cohesion, on the other hand, ensures students receive timely, accessible, appropriate, consistent, and effective support. Evidence shows that cohesion is characterized by triage to ensure the students reach the most appropriate team first, effective signposting to manage and maintain appropriate boundaries, consistent communication and collaborative working, both within and between different teams, services, and departments, external partnerships and appropriate information sharing, widespread training that is role-specific for staff across the institution, and appropriate governance structures to maintain and ensure consistency and cohesion between different areas of the university. There are three key takeaways. Firstly, the importance of formalised and structured governance to support cohesion both internally and externally through the creation of official working groups and policy documentation. Second is the importance of strategic and visible leadership to ensure cohesion across different areas and components of the university and ensure consistency and collaboration in understanding an approach. And finally, the importance of a data-driven, proactive approach to collecting and using appropriate data to join up provision and identify gaps and inequalities in the approach being taken. Inclusivity and intersectionality. This is important because inequality can create mental health challenges and barriers for students, whilst evidence also shows that social exclusion and discrimination can negatively impact on the mental health and physical health of students and staff at university. Evidence clearly and consistently shows that students can face additional challenges and barriers to good well-being at university. This can be due to structural, personal or cultural inequalities, including for care leavers, carers, racialised minorities, members of the LGBTQ+ community, disabled students, students from a working class background, first generation students, international students, and students for whom English is a second language. Evidence equally shows that students can experience additional challenges and barriers to well-being due to higher education specific inequalities for certain groups of students, such as the mode of study, the relationship to campus, or status as non-traditional students. Evidence shows that where students identify with multiple of these identities, the challenges are exponential and not simply accumulative. Evidence also shows that targeted interventions and support can be effective and preferable for specific groups. Universities should ensure that approaches are culturally competent and culturally attuned to the different experiences of different students, and consider specific targeted interventions and approaches that may be most attuned for these experiences. There are three key takeaway messages to developing an intersectional and inclusive approach to mental health at university. Firstly is the importance of proactivity, not simply reactivity. This means collecting and coordinating data and proactively seeking out experience from different students and staff at your institution to anticipate those challenges and barriers to well-being and proactively putting support in place. Second is the importance of accessibility, ensuring that approaches and interventions are accessible to the different material and cultural needs of different groups. And finally, the importance of co-creation. One of the best ways of ensuring an inclusive and intersectional approach is working with the diverse communities at your institution to understand their specific needs and how the approach and different interventions can be made more inclusive and accessible for their specific needs. Research, innovation, and dissemination. Innovation and dissemination are very important to ensure that approaches are safe, effective, far-reaching, efficient, and appropriate to the context and population at your university. Importantly, this is not about research practice or research culture. This theme is applicable to all universities. It's about ensuring and evaluating practice in relation to mental health and well-being at your university, sharing and developing and innovating good practice across the sector. Whilst there's been significant advancements in recent years, there remains some significant gaps in our knowledge and understanding of the prevalence, causes, and effectiveness of specific responses to support student mental health and well-being, and potential areas of risk and harm that universities across the UK are seeking to address. Given that evidence shows that some well-intentioned interventions can inadvertently cause harm, evaluation is an essential component to demonstrate that approaches and interventions to supporting mental health are safe, effective, and accessible to all students in your specific context. Furthermore, evidence shows that collaboration between researchers and professional services can increase the impact of research and innovation. Alternatively, where research is conducted without input from professional service staff, this can result in evidence and practice that is disconnected from the lived reality and practice on the ground. There are several key takeaways here. First is the importance of collaborative relationships between professional services and research teams to pool that collective experience and expertise across the institution. This can also help to ensure cohesiveness across the provider by meaning that interventions and approaches are evaluated and developed in collaboration between services and academic teams to increase the likelihood of impact in practice. Second is the importance of ongoing and consistent, robust evaluation, and this includes within student support services. There is a need to collect, use, and share data effectively across the institution to proactively identify students that might be at particular risk of poor mental well-being at particular times and demonstrate the impact of interventions and approaches, and specifically to ensure that they are not inadvertently causing harm. And finally, the importance of strategic leadership to oversee and invest resource into coordinating an effective and cohesive approach to evaluation across all areas of the whole institution. Thank you for your attention to this webinar. Taken together, these enabling themes can provide the foundation of ensuring an effective whole university approach across other domains within the university. The evidence cited in this webinar is available on the following slides that can be downloaded. Thank you.